Just before graduation, my girlfriend, Su Qingyu, suddenly broke up with me. She gave me a villa, a Bentley, and 18 million yuan, saying it was thanks for my 4 years of companionship. I was lost, wondering why we had to break up. But she coldly said, Su Liunyun, people from families like mine separate love from marriage. Now I have to go back and get engaged, understand? My girlfriend got engaged, but it wasn't to me. When I rushed to the engagement ceremony, I saw Su Qingyu on the stage. She was wearing a haute couture gown and extravagant jewelry, beautiful and dignified. And the man standing opposite her looked to be only about 5'3", very fat, and with a face covered in oily pimples, like they were about to burst. My girlfriend was going to marry a man like that? Thinking back to last night, it felt like a lifetime ago. Yesterday, when I returned to the villa from my internship, Su Qingyu pinned me to the bed. She leaned down and kissed me, her voice hoarse as she said, Honey, don't treat me like a person tonight. Then, it was like I was swallowed up by her. But when I woke up, she was gone. Her phone number was disconnected, and her social media accounts like WeChat and Weibo had been deleted. It was as if she had suddenly disappeared from my world, catching me completely off guard. Then, her lawyer showed up. The lawyer came at noon. He said that Su Qingyu had specifically instructed him to come at noon. Otherwise, he would disturb my rest. Then, he gave me a document. I looked at the document, feeling lost. It was a deed of gift, stating that Su Qingyu willingly gifted the villa, the Bentley, and 18 million yuan in savings to me as a thank you for our 4 years of dating during university. So she broke up with me for no reason, and then treated me like a gigolo, showering me with money? But I didn't lack money at all. I had told Su Qingyu that when we were together. But she said very confidently, no matter how rich you are, you're not as rich as me. I couldn't be bothered to argue, because I loved her. But why do we break up out of the blue? Last night she was so proactive, so intense, saying she loved me almost all night long. How could she break up with me? I calmed myself down, and then, through my own channels, quickly found out. Then, I came to the engagement ceremony. I could see that Su Qingyu wasn't happy. Was she being forced to get engaged to this man? Kiss! At this moment, someone shouted out loud. Then, I saw the man go to take Su Qingyu's hand. Su Qingyu instinctively retreated, avoiding it. The man was unhappy, his full lips flapping and spraying saliva as he said, Have you already forgotten what you promised me? Su Qingyu's face turned pale, but she took a step forward. She must be being threatened. I immediately pushed through the crowd and shouted to Su Qingyu. Qingyu, if you're in trouble, tell me, don't force yourself. Everyone's eyes turned to me. After seeing me, a flicker of joy appeared in Su Qingyu's cold eyes, but it was instantly replaced by frost. Who's this kid? The man glared at me and said, You call my fiancé so intimately? I was just about to state my identity, but I was interrupted by Su Qingyu. Su Qingyu frowned her beautiful eyebrows and said, He's just a lapdog, just have someone kick him out, ignore him. Lick dog. I can feel that all the gazes directed at me are filled with disdain. Indeed, what kind of lick dog would be respected? But I'm not one. I met Su Qingyu during a club activity. At that time, I had just played basketball and was so hungry that my stomach was touching my back, so I snuck some snacks from my roommate. Then my roommate made a few jabs at me and demanded that I call him adoptive father for a laugh. We were just messing around, so I didn't care, and I actually called him adoptive father. At that moment, Su Qingyu stood up for me, saying that just because someone is poor doesn't mean they should be bullied, and she also said I shouldn't steal other people's food. In any case, she had that big sister personality and really liked to fight for justice. Later, I pretended to be poor and pitiful, pestering her every day, and it wasn't long before we got together, and the whole school knew I was kept by her. Others always said she was keeping a pretty boy, and to save her face, I told her that my family was wealthy, but she didn't really care. We were together for 4 years, and there wasn't any dramatic love story, but our love was as sweet as honey. In fact, we hardly ever fought. So when she suddenly broke up with me, I really couldn't accept it and wanted to know why. I looked at Su Qingyu on stage and stepped up. But before I could say anything, that man suddenly appeared in front of me. He was so short that he had to look up at me, and I had to lower my head to see him. You still dare to show up? He jumped up and tried to slap me. I stepped back to dodge, frowning, and looked at Su Qingyu, asking, You broke up with me just to marry someone like this? What nonsensical things are you saying? Su Qingyu quickly stepped forward and slapped me. I dodged when that man tried to hit me, but I didn't dodge when Su Qingyu slapped me. Because she was wearing high heels, I was afraid she might fall. She was about to get married, and I was still considering her. Am I too pathetic? I touched my face where I was hit, my eyes already filled with sorrow. You are Su Qingyu's boyfriend from college? The man walked over, smirking condescendingly, and said, a guy living off others dares to put on airs in front of me. Do you know who I am? I'm Gu Ziyu. The Gu family is the richest in Sacheng. I didn't look at Gu Ziyu, but continued to say to Su Qingyu, you left without a word. That's unfair to me. Unfair? I've given you villas, cars, savings. What more do you want? Stop it, Su Liunian, we're done. Su Qingyu frowned and said, you know my family situation. Love and marriage must be separate. Thank you for 4 years, but my husband can only be Gu Ziyu, understand? I'm only asking you if you love me. I looked at her and said, as for marriage among wealthy families, I understand, because my parents' marriage was a union, but they were relatively lucky, growing up together and naturally falling in love. As for me, I was also supposed to have a marriage arrangement, but it could also go another way. After all, my family's status in the capital no longer needs a marriage alliance to stabilize it. Love? Stop it, Su Liunian. I've known since I was very young that I would have a marriage arrangement, so I never believed in love. Dating you was simply because I thought you looked good, and you were poor enough to be manageable. Su Qingyu sneered and said, all right, now that you know the answer you want, just go. It turned out, what I thought was a love as sweet as honey was just my assumption. In Su Qingyu's eyes, was I just a presentable and obedient pretty boy? How ridiculous. I nodded. If that's the case, then so be it. Though my heart ached, I was someone who could let go. I came to try and salvage things. If I couldn't, I would let go. I looked at Su Qingyu and said with a bitter smile, all right, I wish you happiness. Having said that, I was about to turn and leave the stage. Su Qingyu clenched her hand, looked away, and didn't meet my gaze. But Gu Ziyu blocked my way and smiled mockingly. Now that you're here, you might as well stay to watch the ceremony. Otherwise, you're not giving me, Gu Ziyu face, not giving the Gu family face, and not giving the whole of S City face. So arrogant? I laughed. I'd heard similar words before. After all, Beijing was vast, and not everyone knew me, so it was inevitable that someone would try to act tough in front of me. But after I dealt with a few fools, no one dared to speak to me like this anymore. Gu Ziyu didn't pick up on the contempt in my words. Instead, he clapped his hands. Then, many men in black suits came out and surrounded the stage. Kid, today, if I'm not happy, you won't be leaving this place, Gu Ziyu said. Su Qingyu hurriedly walked over, glaring at me, saying, just get lost, I don't want to see you anymore. Did I ask you to speak? Gu Ziyu said with a cold face. Do you think I'm stupid, that I can't see you're protecting this kid? Protecting me? I looked at Su Qingyu deeply and noticed the worry in her eyes. Perhaps her earlier words were a lie? Su Qingyu shook her head, saying, I just don't want to have any more dealings with people from the past, and today is our engagement. What does my ex-boyfriend have to do with it? If word gets out, wouldn't you lose face? Her tone softened a lot. Ziyu, I'm doing this for you. Gu Ziyu's expression softened, but he still said, I'm not afraid of losing face because in this little piece of land in S City, I am the king. He pointed at me and said, go down to the audience and watch the ceremony. I nodded, looked at Su Qingyu with a non-committal smile, and then stepped off the stage. But as soon as I stepped down, I was immediately surrounded by 4 men in black suits. Then, they led me to a corner seat to sit down. They're afraid I'll run away, huh? Gu Ziyu on stage said to me, Kid, just watch the ceremony properly. If I don't let you leave, you won't be leaving. Now you're not letting me leave, but when you want me to leave, I might not leave. I smiled faintly. Shut up, Su Qingyu scolded. I smiled and didn't say anything. They wanted to keep playing, so they shouldn't blame me. Gu Ziyu continued. I heard you're from Beijing? That's good. Later on, some big figures from Beijing will be coming. They're all young masters from the Beijing circle. I'll introduce you to them. It'll be good for you to see the world. Then I'll thank you in advance. I couldn't help but laugh again. Just then a group of people walked over. They were all young people, looking very arrogant. Unsurprisingly, they must be Gu Ziyu's cronies. Kid, Don't you think you'd be better off alive? You really think Su Qingyu can protect you? To tell you the truth, even if you didn't come today, Ziyu wouldn't have let you off. How could he let a man who slept with his fiancée for 4 years live? I have a phone here. Should I call the police for you? The group laughed unscrupulously. I lower my head and fiddle with my phone, too lazy to talk to these people. But one thing I was sure of, that was Su Qingyu was indeed protecting me. The engagement ceremony ended quickly. Next was the stage for the guests to eat, drink, and socialize. Gu Ziyu led Su Qingyu around, toasting at each table. Everyone was obsequious to Gu Ziyu. I had just taken the time to understand the Gu family of Sucheng. They were indeed said to be the richest, but they lacked a foundation and were considered nouveau riche. The reason for the Gu family's rise was their connections in the capital. They then secured many large projects in Sucheng, which propelled them to become the richest in Sucheng. However, the Gu family had never managed to break into the circle of established families in Sucheng. In other words, the people here today were all a group of those who were subservient to the Gu family, as well as relatives and friends of Su Qingyu's family. As for Su Qingyu's family, they were considered an established family in Sucheng, but they had already declined. The marriage between the Su family and the Gu family was a case of each getting what they needed. What the Gu family wanted was a ticket to enter the circle of established families. Marrying a daughter of an established family was equivalent to obtaining that ticket. And what the Su family wanted was nothing more than money, hoping to take this opportunity to make a comeback. I had seen too many such arranged marriages since I was young, so I wasn't surprised. In fact, looking back at history, such things had happened in every dynasty. Arranged marriages had always been a subject of great study. At this moment, a young girl who looked only 16 or 17 years old sat next to me. She was sweet and beautiful, with some baby fat on her face, making her particularly adorable. Moreover, her eyes and eyebrows were very similar to Su Qingyu's. My name is Su Qingwu, your ex-girlfriend's younger sister. Don't talk from now on, just follow me. She looked very cute, but her voice was cold. As she spoke, she had already pulled my hand, but I didn't move. Instead, I asked, "Did your sister ask you to help me? What do you think?" Su Qingwu frowned and said, "Hurry up and follow me, or you won't be able to leave." At this moment, several men in black suits had already surrounded us. Su Qingwu sighed, let go of my hand, and sat to one side, giving up on the idea of leaving, because she knew she couldn't leave either. "You shouldn't have come," she sighed again. "If it weren't for you, my sister wouldn't have to marry that short, fat lump. For my sake?" I was surprised, but before I could ask, I saw a commotion. Gu Ziyu and Su Qingyu also walked towards the entrance of the banquet hall, while signaling everyone to stand up. Then I saw 7 or 8 people walk into the banquet hall. There were men and women, all very young, but with a calm and composed demeanor. Especially the one at the lead, who was just over 20 years old, but possessed great charisma. "Zisha, you finally arrived. Otherwise, my engagement banquet would have been lacking." Gu Ziyu immediately stepped forward and extended his hand to shake hands with the leader. Lu Zishu did not shake hands with Gu Ziyu, nor even look at him. Instead, he carefully looked at Su Qingyu before asking, "Are you called Su Qingyu?" Su Qingyu was stunned for a moment, then nodded. Lu Zishu's attitude softened a bit, and with a hint of a smile, he said, "He hit her too well. Otherwise, we should have met earlier." Gu Ziyu thought that he was referring to him, and was wondering when he had hidden anything. However, he didn't think too much about it, and instead said to everyone else, "Everyone, this is Lu Zishu of the Lu family in the capital. He is a genuine heir apparent, and the Lu family is also the biggest backer of our Gu family in Sucheng." The others immediately flattered him by clapping enthusiastically, their excitement overflowing. Gu Ziyu, however, saw that I was still sitting on the sofa. He glared at me and said, "Boy, who gave you the audacity? You dare to remain seated?" Su Qingyu also immediately said, "Su Liunian, stand up immediately." Everyone's eyes fell on me again, and they were all smiling maliciously. In their eyes, the young master of the Beijing circle had arrived, and my not getting up to greet him was a sign of disrespect, and I was about to be dealt with. I remained calmly seated and just smiled at Lu Zishu, asking, "Do I need to stand up?" Lu Zishu was momentarily stunned, then rubbed his eyes, and after taking another careful look at me, his expression changed. Guziyu, however, said with a sinister grin, Zishu, this kid is my fiancé's ex-boyfriend, a lapdog to put it bluntly. I kept him around to provide some entertainment. I have a dog kennel, and I was thinking of throwing this kid to the hunting dogs. Su Qingyu's face turned pale as she gritted her teeth and said, Guziyu, what did you promise me? I did promise you that as long as you married me, I wouldn't make things difficult for him. But he came here himself, making me lose face. Why should I let him off? Guziyu sneered. Su Qingyu didn't say anything, but walked directly towards me. She stopped in front of me, shaking her head with a wry smile, her eyes filled with affection. When will you ever stop worrying me? I stood up and grinned at her, that bright and sunny smile she liked so much. Don't talk about me. How about you? When will you believe that your man is very capable? I took her hand and pulled her into an embrace. She said in a very small voice, Liunian, I'm afraid I can't protect you. Your only option now is to hold me hostage, so you can leave here and then run away with the money I gave you, as far away as possible. I smiled helplessly. She still didn't believe in me. Have I hidden myself too well? At this moment, the men in black suits were already moving closer to me. But the service staff in the banquet hall had also surrounded them. They stopped the men in black suits, and as soon as the men resisted, they were immediately taken down. And almost all of Gu's family's bodyguards in the entire banquet hall were also subdued at that moment. The sudden change in the situation caused everyone in the banquet hall to gasp in shock. Su Qingyu was also confused and grabbed me, ready to run. Let's go. No need to go. I held her back, pressed my hands on her shoulders, and made her sit back on the sofa. Then I sat down in front of her. I leaned back on the sofa and crossed my legs, in seemingly frivolous and casual posture, but one that was not to be taken lightly. Su Qingyu stared at me blankly, as if she had never known me before, because in her eyes, I was a cheerful, sunny, and gentle man. She had never seen my sharp edge. Guziyu was stunned for a long while before he finally spoke. Kid, do you have a death wish? This is my Suching, my territory. I understand. Su Qingyu gave you money, and you used that money to hire these people to cause trouble, right? Guziyu pointed at my people and said, An hour before I entered the banquet hall, my people had already replaced the service staff here. There's a saying, a gentleman doesn't stand under a dangerous wall. Without preparation, how could I have appeared so brazenly? Guziyu then said to Lu Zishu beside him, Zishu, lend me your bodyguards. I'm going to kill that pretty boy. Lu Zishu didn't say anything, but walked straight in front of me, then bent over and bowed. Brother Xiaoyan. Lu Zishu's attitude was incomparably humble and respectful. The others he brought also bowed to me. I just smiled and didn't respond. This scene left everyone speechless in shock. Guziyu even ran over and asked, Zishu, what is this? Slap. Lu Zishu slapped him, glaring and saying, You thought I came here today to help you? I just found out you actually dared to steal my brother Xiaoyan's woman. I came specifically to deal with you. Guziyu covered his face, his greasy face full of question marks. The Su family in Beijing. Haven't you heard of them? Lu Zishu said again. Guziyu's face instantly paled, and he trembled as he asked, Why you mean Su Liunian is from the Su family in Beijing? Not only is he from the Su family, but he's also the sole heir of the Su family. Lu Zishu said coldly, What kind of family is the Su family? Are they very powerful? You don't even know the Su family in Beijing? 3 generations, 7 people have entered the cabinet. No. Then is Su Qingyu sick? Having such a boyfriend, why would she still be threatened by Guziyu? The crowd's discussion made Su Qingyu's expression change a lot. Her face was full of disbelief as she stared at me for a long time, tears almost falling. I said helplessly, I've told you many times how awesome my family is, but you didn't believe it. Anyway, I didn't think it mattered much. I was too lazy to say more. After all, you'd find out after we got married. Who knew you were so silly as to almost be taken advantage of by that pig to protect me? Su Qingyu cried and laughed, her little fists constantly hitting me. I hugged her and said, Don't you think about it? You're so beautiful, and your family is good too. Why did no one dare to pursue you during your 4 years in college? You arranged all of that? Su Qingyu glanced at Lu Zishu in surprise and said, But didn't he just say that you hid me very well? They all know about you, but without my permission, they wouldn't dare to have any contact with you. As for those who wanted to pursue you, they were long rejected by the people I arranged. The villa we live in is bought by you, but the nanny, driver, gardener, and cook in the villa are all my bodyguards. Even the school janitors, my roommates, and even your best friend are all people my family has been raising since they were little, following me as playmates. I sighed and said, actually, the reason I didn't tell you the truth, besides you not believing it, was also because I was afraid you'd feel pressure if you knew. But I really should have told you earlier, so you wouldn't have been threatened. Moreover, I really didn't take the Su family seriously and didn't do too much investigation, otherwise Guziyu wouldn't have had a chance to act up. Isn't it just wanting to bring the declining Su family back to its former glory? That's just a matter of a single word from the Su family. And now, it's time to deal with Guziyu. Gu Xiao, you are quite arrogant. I smiled as I said this. Guziyu's legs went weak, and he directly knelt down. He kept bowing his head, saying, Su Xiao, I really didn't know your identity, otherwise I wouldn't have dared. But when he said this, there was a hidden resentment in his eyes. I looked at Su Qingyu and asked, did you lose anything? Su Qingyu shook her head and said, I lulled you to sleep only when it was bright, and then I hurried back to attend the engagement banquet, so he didn't have a chance to make me lose anything. I nodded, then got up and said, let's leave it at that for now. In wealthy families, wanting to do something won't be done through shouting and fighting. After leaving the banquet hall, we went to the Su family home. I had already met Su Qingyu's parents in the banquet hall. They hadn't said anything to me at that time, but when I appeared, they looked down on me. However, after learning my true identity, I could see their excitement, though they restrained themselves. Of course, I knew they were deliberately trying to act deep in order to avoid being looked down upon by me. But all of that was inconsequential, because the Su family was too low-level for me to bother to guess their thoughts. I sat in the living room of the Su family, across from Su Qingyu's parents, with Su Qingyu by my side. As for Lu Zishu and the others, I had sent them away. I had no idea where they went to play. I spoke indifferently. The Su family wants to stage a comeback, that's fine. Give me half a month. But then, Su's father suddenly said, actually, our Su family wants to come to the capital. I raised my hand to interrupt. Uncle, I understand your desire to bring glory to the Su family, but taking too big a step can lead to mistakes. We should take it slow and progress step by step. Su's mother frowned and said, marrying Guziyu would allow the Su family to immediately enter the capital, relying on the connections of Lu Zishu's family. Why is your Su family more powerful than Lu Zishu's family, yet can't help us enter the capital? Su Qingyu looked troubled and said, Mom and Dad, let's listen to Liunyang on this matter. Stop discussing it. You aren't even married yet, and you're already turning your elbows out. Su's mother banged on the coffee table and said, Xiao Su, I'm putting it plainly today. If you can't help the Su family enter the capital for development immediately, then forget about the marriage. No wonder the Su family had declined. These two were quite myopic. I was about to say something, but Su Qingyu held my hand. Su Qingyu said earnestly, Mom and Dad, our Su family cannot really integrate into the circle of the capital. Even if we try to force ourselves in with the Liunyang family, we will still be looked down upon and neglected, and we might even become a weakness for attacks on the Liunyang family. What we need to do now is to settle down and develop in Su City. After 10 more years, we can enter the capital. Are you lecturing me? I am your father. Su Qingyu also got angry. Dad, if it hadn't been for your stubbornness back then, the Su family wouldn't have been deceived and declined. Grandpa wouldn't have died. Why can't you learn from this? Then she pulled me up and said, let's go. They are being unreasonable and won't understand. This was the Su Qingyu I knew, decisive in everything she did and always right. On the way to the hotel, I asked her about the incident where the Su family was deceived, and she briefly explained. It was basically about a marginal person who knew a few people in the capital circle and tricked her dad into investing, claiming that success would lead to entry into that circle. The whole family opposed it back then, but her dad insisted on going through with it, and as a result almost lost everything. Since then, her dad seemed to be possessed, constantly wanting to enter the capital circle. Entering the Beijing circle is truly an obsession for some local powerful families. However, Very few can actually make the transition from the local level to the Beijing circle and truly establish a firm foothold. This is because every circle is exclusive, especially the Beijing circle, which enjoys the most privileged resources, naturally doesn't want to be touched by outsiders. But almost every year, people from the Beijing circle use the lure of entry as bait to fish. Just like Lu Zishu, he was fishing for the Gu Ziyu family. Looking at it now, Gu Ziyu is the richest man in Sucheng, but that's just an empty shell. Most of the money the Gu family makes is actually offered up to Lu Zishu. I've done the same thing myself. I told Su Qingyu these things on the way to the hotel. She listened very carefully, but remained silent the whole time. When we got to the hotel, she nestled in my arms and said, "Liunian, you're suddenly like this. It's like I've never known you before. You used to be like a big boy who wouldn't grow up, but now you seem so knowledgeable. Which one is the real you?" "Both are me. With you, I am my most authentic self. As for what you call knowledge, it's actually just the rules of the world, something I've absorbed since I was little. If you're interested, after we get married, we can go back to the old house to live, and you'll naturally understand." Last night, she was so proactive, so intense, spending almost the entire night telling me she loved me. Half of me, Su Qingyu nodded, then shook her head and said, "I'm not interested. I work so hard because the Su family has no one capable of carrying the load. Now that I have you as a backer, why do I need to work so hard?" She was right. With me, she doesn't need to work hard anymore. After dark, Lu Zishu sent someone to pick us up. We drove to the outskirts where there was a dog farm, owned by Gu Ziyu. The so-called dog farm was actually a dog fighting arena. There was a reason we were here. Gu Ziyu and Su's parents had all gone insane, actually trying to kidnap me to threaten the Su family for benefits. However, when Gu Ziyu sent people to capture me, they were already caught by Lu Zishu's men and brought here. I sat in the stands overlooking the dogfighting area. Gu Ziyu was thrown into the ring, covered in blood, facing a Tosa dog tied to a leash. And next to me were the trembling Su's parents. I really never imagined that the two of them would be so stupid as to kidnap me. Su Qingyu was so angry that she was shaking, gritting her teeth and saying, "What were you thinking? Even if you manage to kidnap Liunian now and get into the Beijing circle, do you think you won't get punished later? What's there to be afraid of? By then, the deed will be done. Our Su family will have entered the Beijing circle. You'll be the daughter-in-law of the Su family, and they won't be able to make things too difficult for us, right?" Su's father said through clenched teeth. Su Qingyu was so angry she couldn't speak. I patted her hand to comfort her, then said to Su's father, "You probably don't know how the top circles play. If you really threaten my life, my parents will no longer care about who I love. They will bypass me directly and make the Su family completely disappear, including Qingyu." This was cruel to say, but that was the truth. My parents wouldn't even let Su Qingyu live because they would be worried about her seeking revenge. That's a hidden danger. "Young Master Su, I was wrong, please give me a chance." Gu Ziyu shouted, his voice cracking, but the Tosa dog's leash had already been cut, and his voice abruptly stopped. I didn't let Su Qingyu continue watching the bloody scene. I stood up and left. Su's parents also wanted to leave, but I stopped them. I looked at them and said, "You two watch carefully, and then write me a 10,000-word reflection essay. If it's not insightful enough, you can continue watching. After all, there are many more Gu family members." I had to let them know how to behave as my future parents-in-law. Half a year later, Su Qingyu and I graduated. Then, we returned to Beijing together and held a wedding of the century.